Wife openly expresses her desire to explore relationships with other men. She wanted to go on a date against my wish. I informed her that she would come home and assure me of her deep love for me, allowing me to reclaim her body. My wife politely told me that she was going out after work tonight and probably wouldn't be back until the next day. On a Friday morning, her planned speech was delivered with such speed and grace that I was immediately convinced there was nothing I could do. According to her, she still loved me, but her gaze developed a wandering look. This was my first encounter with marital infidelity. It seemed to be a fairly common theme in movies, books, plays, and even gossip I'd heard from both victims and villains in their real-life interpretations of infidelity. I listened to her carefully rehearsed eloquence about how I was strong enough to take it, about how it's unfair that she didn't have time to fatten up before she got married, that human beings are not meant to be monogamous, that society is too rigid about love, that it's just love, and about how she would be much more attentive to my needs in the future if I let her do it. With the slightest sigh separating this nonsense from my response, she moved forward with renewed vigor into the well-worn waters of clichés, including that I have no choice, that she can do whatever she wants with her body, that life is short and she deserves all the pleasure she can get, and that she has the right to satisfy even the need to try many different colors, shapes, tastes. Yes, her selective menu didn't include brain size or the size of her capital. She was simply aiming for physical taste tests. Please note that I'm not saying I was poorly endowed, nor would I say I was physically weak or soft in character. Is there any way to modestly say that I have at least average intelligence and a large wallet? No? Well, then know that I am a rocket scientist, and my work has made me obscenely wealthy. My wife had no complaints when the former love of my life finished her statement. I could have reacted with the brute force of a huge beast. I felt the rage within me. I could have taken on the role of Ahab, a revenge-hungry king with a superiority complex, obsessed with defeating the great beast. But we know how that story ended in destruction. No, Melville had a better model for me to follow. Even though the message of Bartleby, the scrivener, was unclear, it had been a subject of contemplation throughout my life. The meaning of its strange central character suddenly became clear to me when my wife asked me to kiss her goodbye. I mentally thanked Herman Melville for the Bartleby lesson. Ideally, I would not. Everyone has witnessed something astounding at least once in their life. There will always be times when things are so strange you can't help but laugh. You are in such a state of shock that you feel compelled to speak, eager to respond, but your brain is digesting everything so quickly it's at a loss for words. My wife's jaw dropped, her mouth grotesquely opened. My desire to go on a tirade about morals, oaths, and expressions of devoted love, or threats of violent retribution, all bubbled up inside. But somehow, a simple, "I'd rather not do that," was enough. Often, people have a power that's underestimated and rarely considered a strength. It's the gift of self-control. There is strength in control. I'd rather not do that was my control over the situation. Of course, after exercising that control, I was treated to a new tirade about not respecting her needs, about my immature resentment, about this and that, ending with, "You're going to have to accept my decision or do without me." I'd rather not. I noticed a crack in her armor. She began to falter slightly, trying her best to look determined. I didn't threaten her, didn't beg, didn't cry, didn't explode with indignation. Then she began to negotiate. She promised she wouldn't stay out all night on her first date. Instead, she would come home and assure me of her deep love for me, allowing me to reclaim her body. I'd rather not do that. That stunning phrase was the encore. My wife switched from a soft mistress to the lawyer she might never be. She had as much trouble passing the bar exam as I, her husband. I'm pretty sure she didn't remember one of her law school classes from the year before we got married. Back then, the entire class drafted prenuptial agreements for personal use. She took it very seriously at the time, and the contract was duly signed, notarized, and fully enforceable. When she went on her next tirade about how, if I wanted a divorce, she would take my house, my bank account, and even my trust fund, and end up in my house, in my bed, sleeping with whoever she wanted, whenever she wanted, and I would pay for it, I had a simple answer: I'd rather not. And she didn't come back that night, so I could reclaim her body. She didn't come home Saturday afternoon or Saturday night. The sun was just setting on Sunday night when she dragged herself into the house looking like a wild animal had just driven her onto the rocks. She dumped her bag on the patio next to the grill, where I had a nice sizzling ribeye cooking. I didn't even bother to look in her direction. "I figured you'd rather not kiss me now, right?" I went about my business, smearing marinade on the sizzling meat and turning the corn a quarter turn. "Would you mind cooking one of those for me?" "I'd rather not." "That's right, I should have known. Are you ever going to say anything else besides, 'I'd rather not'?" That gets tiresome very quickly.